Welcome, everyone. On the May 23rd, 2024 OSEP monthly TA call, OSER's Assistant Secretary Glenna Wright Gallo presented a highlight of the importance of leadership that puts child development and learning at the center of decision-making at both state and local levels. Assistant Secretary Gallo also shared current initiatives within the U.S. Department of Education to advance OSER's priority of improving outcomes for infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities through equitable access to high-quality intervention and instruction. If you missed this call or participated but are interested in going back and hearing parts of it again or all of it again, here is a QR code that you can use to access the recording of that call. And if you're planning to attend the OSEP Leadership and Project Directors Conference, you'll be hearing more about OSER's priority of leveraging equitable outcomes. Now to our main event. As you know, OSEP will be issuing its responses to your FFY 2022 SPPs and APRs and your state's determination next week. As has been the case for the last 10 years, OSEP will be placing equal weight on compliance and performance in calculating your state's determination. During this afternoon's call, OSEP's Christine Pilgrim will be sharing important information regarding this year's responses and determinations. So Christine, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Greg. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our call this afternoon. Well, afternoon here on the East Coast. We hope that you're doing well and enjoying the last days of spring. As you know, our data team and myself, we're currently completing OSEP's responses to your FFY 2022 SPP APR submission and finalizing annual determinations. I know that you're all waiting with bated breath for next week to come out so you can get your determinations. And as we do every year, when we come around this time, we wanted to share some important information prior to issuing determinations. So during today's call, we are going to review our timeline, describe the determinations and closures that you're going to be able to find in the EMAP system, and discuss what will occur after determinations are issued. As questions arise, as Shoshana mentioned, please put them in the Q&A, and I'll try to respond as we're going, although my friends and colleagues know I usually can't do two things at once very well, but we will get to them. And if we run out of time, I'll definitely follow up by email after the call if needed. And to start us off, I am going to turn it over to Kara Osmundson from AEM so that she can share a little bit with you about the enhancements in the system and the determinations and closures. So Kara?
Thank you, Christine. And good afternoon, everybody. So just to kind of give an overview of the enhancements that have been made into the EMAP system this past year. Again, the purpose, just for background, is to just help support the Evidence Act in producing machine-readable outputs and making sure that the system is enhanced to pre-fill and populate data within it on the UI as well as in the final docx's to help minimize the need for attachments and display data. And so that's what we've been focusing on this year, is trying to ensure that everything is accessible via the machine for your computer. So an overview of the different determination and closure sections. There are the 5 sections here. We have the RDA matrix, the data rubric, the dispute resolution, how the department made determinations, and finally the final determination letter are all part of that final determinations and closures section. And so we're going to go through each of those pieces and what changes have happened there. So the first one with the RDA matrix, this one has been data will be loaded upon ED releasing their determinations for states to review in the system. You'll be able to do that on the user interface as well as in the final docx's. To see it in the user interface, you'll just go to the determinations section and then click on RDA matrix, and you'll be able to see it there in the UI, where you can download the final docx. In the data rubric, we had preliminary data loaded prior to clarification open for you to be able to review in the system user face as well as in the final docx. And so final data will be uploaded upon ED releasing their determinations. And this can also be viewed within the system user interface as well as the final docx's. You can go to the data rubric section there on screen or that section within the docx. For the dispute resolution, the survey data was loaded for FFY 2022 as an attachment prior to clarification. And so it was not available in the system. It was an attachment within the docx. We are going to be loading data upon ed releasing determinations, and that data will actually be viewed within the system user interface as well as the final docx. And so note that starting with FFY 2023, we will no longer be uploading as an attachment this data. It will all be viewable within the system interface and in the docx. For how the department made determinations, there is a link available on the user interface as well as in the docx that you can click on to go to the URL where you can see a copy of the HTDMD document on OSEP's website. And the current one will be uploaded in June for this year. And then finally, this is a brand new piece, the final determination letter. This system was enhanced to be able to display this determination letter as a read-only format within the docx. This is not available on the UI. It is only going to be viewable in the docx, and that will be available upon ED's release of their determinations. And so once they release their determination, you'll be able to generate your final docx and see your determination letter there. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to our Partner Support Center. Their information is here on this screen. They are open and available to respond either phone or email from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. They are excluding federal holidays. And they also provide many great support documentation for you at our community site, where you can find some great technical videos, user guides, TA docs, and any broadcasts that we send out. And so that is for me, and I will turn it back over to Christine.
Thanks, Kara, as efficient as always. All right, so now we're going to move into determinations, what to expect. So determinations are going to be issued for Part C on June the 18th and for Part B on June the 21st. And those dates are noted in the EMAPS timeline in case you don't have them top of mind always. An email is going to be sent out to chief state school officers as well as lead agency directors to indicate that the SPP APR tool, the EMAPS, is open for you to review OSEP's analysis, OSEP responses, required actions, and your determination letters, and all of the determinations and closures that Kara just mentioned. In addition to the email that goes out from Greg, I think last year I might have sent it, but in addition to that email, PSC also sends out an email blast to let everyone know that the system is open and that we've issued determinations. OSEP has a series of quality control checks that we do leading up to determinations and before we finalize everything. So just so you know, it's multiple eyes that look at your submission as well as our OSEP responses and required actions before we hit the final button to issue determinations to you. So when you go into EMAPS, you're going to be able to review not only our final OSEP responses and required actions for each indicator, but also, as was the case last year, there are a number of determinations and closures, with one of them being brand spanking new this year. I want to remind you, it's important to also look at the language in the OSEP response or required actions in the introduction, as well as all of the indicators 1 through 17. So within EMAPS for the determinations and closures, Kara just went through some of this, but I will reiterate, all states are going to find the following enclosures. You're going to have an RDA matrix, which includes your state determination, your state's RDA percentage, which is based on both the compliance score and the results score from each of the two matrices. There's a compliance matrix and a results matrix that make up your entire RDA matrix. As Greg mentioned earlier, sort of OSEP has had this equal weight on both results and compliance for a number of years, 10 years. I think 2014 was the first year. But for the entities, that RDA sort of weighting is slightly different. For the entities is 60% compliance and 40% results. You'll see on the compliance matrix the scoring of your compliance indicators and other compliance factors. And then on the results portion, you'll see the scoring for the results indicators and results factors. You will have a data rubric that you'll be able to access, as Kara mentioned, which shows how OSEP, it will show on that final score is how we calculate the state's timely and accurate state reported data, which is a score on the compliance matrix. You will see your dispute resolution survey data, which includes IDA section 618 data that OSEP uses to calculate timely state complaint decisions and timely due process hearing decisions, which are also scores on the compliance matrix. You have the link to the How the Department Made Determinations document, and that will link to the document on the IDA website. And you have your determination letter, which, as Kara mentioned, you won't see in the user interface. You'll see it when you download your DocX. So we issue determinations on the 18th for Part C, on the 21st for Part B, and then what? Like, what happens after that? In the weeks after we issue determinations, we prepare the DocXs for public posting. That can sometimes take a while because we have to apply privacy suppression to those DocXs. And then we post them on the IDA website. So when those are finally posted, we usually send out notification to you to let you know that the documents are publicly available. So we will post the final DocX with any Disclosure Review Board approved privacy suppressions and any applicable 508 accessible attachments embedded as well. Please remember that you are responsible for posting the final APR, inclusive of our OSEP responses and required actions, in addition to any attachments that you might have given us that were not 508 compliant, which means we will not post them in accordance with federal timelines. So please don't forget that posting piece as well. I know that many of you link back to our documents, etc., but just remember that there's a requirement that these be posted. We will notify you, as I mentioned, when we publicly post the documents on our IDEA website. You should expect to hear from your OSEP state lead after we issue determinations, offering to set up a determinations call with you so that they can walk through our analysis, our OSEP responses, and the required actions if applicable in any indicators, and they can answer any questions you may have about our analysis. Let's move just briefly to EDFAC's modernization. I talked about this last year during our sort of determinations national TA call, and I'd flagged then that we had language in the determination letters about this. We will have a similar paragraph this year about the same topic, reminding you that the department's expectation is that states submit high quality data to the department as of the due date. And as we reinforced last year, your 618 data, so your section 618 data that's submitted to us as of the due date is what is used in your SBP APR, it's what is used in your results matrix, and it's what is used in any OSEP publicly released files. And there is no resubmission period. It's the data as of the due date, period. The Part C section 618 data are used to pre-fill indicators 2, 5, 6, 9, and 10. And the Part B 618 data are used to pre-fill indicators 3, 5, and 6 in the SBP APR. So remember, just like last year, we're reminding you again, it's the data as of the due date, used to pre-fill these indicators, used in our calculations to on the results matrix, and used in all of our publicly released files. So what's new for this year? I know that we flagged last year some of the things we were considering for determinations in 2024 and beyond. So want to tell you a little bit about what changed for this year, and then also what we're thinking about as we move ahead. This is also laid out in the how the department may, in the determination letters, So starting with the 2024 determinations, OSEP is using as a factor in determinations the participation of children with disabilities on statewide assessments. And the term statewide assessments is inclusive of the regular and the alternate assessments, which is consistent with ESCA provisions. You would remember that in the past, we would calculate participation by looking at 4th and 8th grade, reading and math separately, participation on just the regular assessment. So for this year, starting this year, we will look at the regular and alternate combined, looking at that statewide assessment part rate. The numerator for the calculation is the number of children participating in statewide assessments for school year 22-23. The denominator is the number of all children with disabilities, participants and non-participants on the statewide assessment, excluding medical emergencies. Calculation will be done separately for grades 4 and 8 and reading and math. And a state is going to be assigned a score of a 1 if you hit that 95% or above rate, and a 0 if you're below it. This should seem relatively familiar to many of you because of the provisions in ESEA around the part rate, but that is the one change we made for this year for Part B 2024 determinations. Now, because this is the first year we're implementing this new participation rate calculation and including it in this manner, we determined that while participation of children with disabilities on statewide assessments is a factor on the Part B results matrix, that no state would receive a needs intervention determination in 2024 due solely to that criteria. So if your participation rates were not great or abysmal, and that would have been the sole factor to land you in a needs intervention determination, we've said for this year, because this is the first year we're implementing, that no state would be in that situation. So you would end up being needs assistance instead. This is a similar approach to one we took last year when we had a much more comprehensive review of indicator 4 and said that indicator 4B, while it would be a factor on the compliance matrix, that nobody's determination would be negatively impacted as a result. I do want to flag for you, though, that this year 4B is included as normal. So it counts in all regards this year, and us not giving a state a negative impact for our in-depth analysis last year for 4B, but fully implementing this year, similar to what we're going to do with this participation element. So, but moving forward, it will not only be included, but whatever effect it has on determinations would stand. So what's OSEP thinking about for next year and after that? We flag in the determination letters that the potential changes we're thinking about for Part C and for Part B. For Part C specifically, we're looking at considering 2 additional factors for determinations. First, we're considering as a factor looking at OSEP identified. I am sorry that I did not turn off my email before I started this call, but y'all can hear how many emails I get in a given day. Anyway, we're considering OSEP identified longstanding noncompliance. So any unresolved findings that were issued by OSEP at least 3 years ago. And in considering that factor, it would show up on the compliance matrix under that longstanding noncompliance section, beginning with the 2025 determinations. And we're also considering whether if a state was, let's say, meets requirements, if that would prevent them from being meets requirements because of that OSEP identified unresolved noncompliance. And once again, it's looking at, sort of 3 years or more of that. The second thing we're considering is looking at whether and how we consider Part C results data reported under 3 indicators, with a goal, obviously, of looking to improve results for all infants, toddlers, and children with disabilities. So we're looking at how sort of our scoring options, et cetera, for the child outcome indicator, C3, as well as potentially looking at the information and data that states report under C5 and C6, so child find. All right, so for Part B, we're looking at 3 potential changes for 2025 and beyond. So we're looking at, similar to C, looking at how we, considering OSEP identified longstanding Noncompliance, which would be defined as unresolved. OSEP identified findings that are older, 3 or more years old. As I mentioned just now, it would be reflected in the longstanding noncompliance section of the compliance matrix. And in implementing this factor in 2025, we're looking at whether a state that otherwise received a score of meets requirements would not be able to receive that determination because of this longstanding noncompliance. The second thing we're considering as a potential factor is looking at improvement rates, improvement in proficiency rates, children with disabilities on statewide assessments. And then the third thing is looking at sort of whether and how we continue to use participation and proficiency of children with disabilities on NAEP. All of those are with a continued effort to incorporate equity and improve results for kids with disabilities. We also highlight in the determination letter, Greg also mentioned it earlier when he was talking about Glenna being on last month's call, and sort of this emphasis we're having on sort of leading for equitable outcomes. There's language in the determinations letter reminding states that determinations provides an opportunity for all stakeholders to examine state data as the data relate to improving outcomes for infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities. The department, OSEP, is encouraging stakeholders to review states' SPP APR data and other available data as part of a focus on improving equitable outcomes for children with disabilities. Key areas that the department encourages state and local personnel to review are access to high quality intervention and instruction, individualized family service plans, so IFSPs, as well as the effective implementation of IEPs, so effective implementation of both, using data to drive decision-making, supporting strong relationship building with families, and actively addressing educator and other personnel shortages. So there's language in the determination letters about all of the things that I just mentioned. Reminder about EdFacts modernization, flagging what is different this year for Part B, flagging what we're thinking about for both Part B and Part C in 2025 and beyond, and this sort of reminder about the importance of reviewing the data in these key areas. All right, moving on to how you should expect to engage with OSEP over the coming months. So between, summer starts in a few days through January when you're hustling to prepare those submissions again, I mentioned your state leader is going to be reaching out after we issue determinations next week to offer to schedule a determinations call. It's an opportunity for you to get any clarification about our analysis, but that conversation, it shouldn't feel like a one and done. We hope to have continued engagement regarding the status of work in your state, including related to the implementation of the OSEP, highlights happening in your state, good things, any areas of concern, and then thinking about any opportunities for technical assistance moving forward. Also want to remind you, as noted on the slide, hopefully we'll get to see many of you in person at the OSEP Leadership Conference. That's another opportunity for us to connect. You should expect the continued engagement through monthly calls, as well as we invite you to collaborate your TA's providers in those conversations and engagement with OSEP as well. And now let's see if there are any questions. Hold on, it's going to take me a minute to get to the chat, guys. I have to go read. I think I have a question. Oh, there's a question about what is available to the public. That's a good question. So the docx that you download, that sort of Word docx with all of the indicators, your submission, OSEP response, and required actions, and then the determinations and closures, all of that is available to the public when we post it on our website. However, we do apply disclosure review board approved methodologies as it relates to suppression. So if there are any privacy suppressions that we have to apply, those would be applied to the docx before we post them. And there are a few times that we have to use data quality suppressions as well. And those are applied before we post them. All right, I answered that live. Next question was, Christine, could you repeat the numerator and the denominator for the Part B assessment participation? So you're gonna have to give me a minute to go back to that because I don't like memorize it. But also it will be laid out in the how the department made determination. So I encourage you guys to read that closely. I read it every year when I sit down and I'm reviewing to make sure determinations are running well as I'm preparing for calls with states, because it gives you all the information you could possibly want. I'm looking at 3 different screens, so I hope this Shoshana wasn't being intuitive and went back there for me, but give me a second. But it is, the numerator is the number of children with disabilities who participated in the statewide assessments. The denominator is the number of all children with disabilities, participants and non-participants on the statewide assessment. Numerator, children with disabilities, your participants in the statewide assessments. Denominator, participants and non-participants. Hopefully that helps. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out. And I answered that live. Okay, next up. Oh, y'all have like lots of questions. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I mentioned SEA responsibility post SVP APR exclusive of. If I said exclusive of OSEP comments, I hope that that's not what I said, because that would certainly not be what I meant. What we do not post in the final docx's that we post on the IDEA website is if you submitted an attachment. And y'all know that we don't really like attachments because of the Evidence Act, et cetera. But let's say you submitted one as part of your SPP APR submission, and it is not 508 compliant, we will not post it on our website. So it will not be part of what we post. That's what I was trying to say. So if I said exclusive of OSEP comments, please know that that's not the case. What we post includes our OSEP responses. What we include is required actions, all of the determinations and closures. But if you submitted an attachment that is not 508 compliant, we will not post it. There are 2 exceptions for that. One is the ICC form does not need to be 508 compliant because we don't post that. We keep it for our records. And if you submit an updated like survey for indicator 8 for Part B, 4 for Part C, we do not post the surveys. But sometimes, despite us saying, because the Evidence Act, all the data needs to be in the system, no attachments, every now and again, somebody will include like an attachment of some report of survey results, et cetera. For example, it's not 508 compliant, wouldn't be part of what we post. Oh my gosh, a question about when the public documents are available, how long after June 18th or 21st. We have to manually apply privacy suppressions to not only quantitative data, but sometimes qualitative data, what you have in your narrative. So it takes a while. I think last year they were up by the beginning of August, I believe. So can't say for sure, but it takes a little while to apply the privacy suppressions. Is it planned to have early, midday, or late day postings of determinations? That's a cute question. I would say probably by the end of the day. It won't be like the first thing in the morning. Never that, because we're doing like last minute administrative checks and stuff. But I figured that, by 5, they should be out. Hope that helps. What else? What else do I have? I did that one. What are states required to post other than the SPP APR? There are a few things you're required to post, but I don't know if this is specific to your SPP APR being posted or not. So there are all kinds of public reporting requirements, right? Like you have to post, you have to report publicly on your LEA or EIS program performance on state targets. You have to post that in a certain amount of time. For your Part B program, their assessment public reporting requirements. You also have to post your SPP APR for the public to see as well. If you ever forget, you look at the SPP APR memo, well, not the memo, the instructions that come out with the measurement table, it is noted there, but you should post your full APR. Yes. What else do I have? But remember, there are lots of public reporting requirements, and sometimes it can be a challenge to keep them all straight, but there are a number of things you have to post publicly. I think I'm done.
That may be it.
That might be it for now, but y'all had a lot of questions for me. Woo! Please know that I'm available if you have any questions when you finish. I know many of you know how to reach me. Just know how much we appreciate all of your hard work. What we do is not easy, but such important work. I know that you're appreciated. And we'll see you soon too in August at OSEP Leadership Conference. Greg, I can turn it back over to you.
I've got nothing. Christine, you did a fabulous job. And, you know, as Christine said, if you have additional questions that occur to you after we conclude the call, please send them to her. And I will make sure that she responds to each and every one of them.
She will. Greg will.
She will anyway.
Greg will hold me accountable. It's a hectic time. I might get a little frazzled before the week's done, but Greg will hold me accountable. And maybe dance parties when we're like in, where are we? Virginia, Crystal City, wherever we are for leadership. Yeah. We can have dance parties there. It's always a good time for a dance party. So,
always a good time.
Always a good time. Bye, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.